and welcome to The Wellness Warrior, a podcast by The Mindful Village. This is a community by Emerge Performance where we talk to different professionals across different industries on how mental wellness builds resilience. And of course, we also hear from them their personal stories and how they strive and continue to be wellness warriors in themselves as they are today. So I'm your host, Han Yi, a psychologist and a human capital consultant. And together with me, my fellow wellness warrior, KK.
Thank you, Han Yi. So I am your co-host for today. I'm also part of Emerge Performance as the lead strategist. I'm also a coach. And today we are very happy that we have invited Ms. Joy Lim, HR executive of Safe Space, to have a conversation with us on wellness and mental well-being. Let us welcome her. Joy, hi.
Hi. Thank you, Han Yi and KK, for this warm welcome. So to introduce a little bit about myself, my name is Joy. I am 26 this year. So I've actually been working in the HR industry for around 4 years now. This is my 4th year working in the HR industry. Started out really young. So I do I work as a HR executive at Safe Space, and basically I'm the only HR personnel here at Safe Space. So you can imagine everything that is related to HR here. I do it end to end independently by myself. Occasionally, I have the help of an advisor who used to work at Safe Space freelance. But most of the times I'm doing most of the stuff by myself. So end-to-end recruitment, onboarding, offboarding, employee engagement, performance management, and everything else. Yeah.
Oh, wow. So you are basically the HR department.
Basically, yes, that's what my colleagues make fun of me, saying oh yeah, we always say the HR team, but there's only one person.
But you know how they say sometimes maybe the younger people are just more capable, they can do more. So to the capable ones, more is given.
I would say actually here at Safe Space is quite manageable, especially because we're a startup, right? So I didn't really have to manage too many people, and I'm very lucky that my colleagues are very nice. They don't give me a lot of issues. I don't have a lot of grievances, no complaints. The occasional complaints are saying that I'm very noisy and things like that, I bother them at work. But I think we're good. So far, no major complaints.
Well, so one thing you mentioned that is very interesting is, so you talked about a lot of times you're working alone. And you know how the past years of COVID, working from home, a lot of us are essentially working alone. So how is this impacting you, or what's your feeling and experience on it?
I joined Safe Space after the COVID situation, but when in the COVID lockdown situation, I was working for my previous actually my first employment company. So lockdown was actually very scary, especially because I was an extrovert and still am a very big extrovert person. So when COVID just hit, I was at the peak. I couldn't live without going out. I couldn't live without talking to people. Conversations were my daily thing, and I was so used to going to the office, seeing friends every day, and all of a sudden we just have to be thrown into my room, and that's it. You just have to be isolated. Yeah, you have family and things like that, but it's different, right? And when you keep seeing the same people every day 24/7, you do get occasional arguments. So that was really hard, especially you have to deal with work on top of that. So that was a lot of things at once, and I was only 22, 23. I was young and foolish and the experience to deal with this. So it was really hard. I was very thankful to have a close group of friends at work that I regularly talk to, and we have long calls to kind of survive and pull through work together at home. So it really did help kind of ease me into the working at home alone kind of feeling. And I eventually learned to spending time with myself too. So that really helps me a lot. I really grew a lot exponentially during that time. I realized how much I actually enjoy spending time by myself. I didn't just really enjoy people, and how sometimes spending time with people actually tired me out. I just kept burning through. And being able to kind of enjoy the time by myself brought me so much liberation, because I realized I didn't have to keep going out. I could just enjoy the time by myself and really learn how to take care of myself too. So that really gave me a lot of like strength to move on in the future companies. And so when I came on to take on my role at Safe Space, it's a hybrid position even until today. So we work from home and work from in office. Both, we mix it. So the days that I work in office, I get my feel of like talking to people, enjoying time with them. And then once we work from home, it's like, you should just be happy that I'm messaging you. That's it. Like, we are good. Don't call me. The lesser meetings we have, the better. Please don't arrange too many things during this time because I'm finally enjoying my home time. I don't really want to talk to people at all. So it kind of had a good mix, and like I really started enjoying like my work and my personal life a lot more. So that gave me a lot of like freedom and like strength to just survive and pull through life. Yeah.
That's great. So love your story about how you were able to sort of navigate that transition, right? And see in terms of your personality. Do you notice also how, I mean, any thoughts about how people can also navigate this transition? Because say extroverts who are suddenly not able to be extroverted, or introverts who need to be extroverted, right? So that shift, right? Maybe in whether work requirements and whatnot.
I think like it's actually very common for like HR to kind of see a lot of these people struggling, because like we work with all sorts of people, right? So I usually kind of like have a good balance. Like I advise all of my friends to have a good balance, especially for like my fellow extroverts, to have like a good balance of like home time and outside time. Like, spending time with people is always great, but sometimes what happens is we don't realize that we are actually burning out a lot of energy just by spending time with the wrong people too. So I kind of like speak to them, and we kind of have good conversations over like, oh, are these people actually good for us? Like, do they actually absorb energy and we just kind of like feel very drained at the end of the day? Or do we actually feel more energized and revitalized to take on the life next day because we went out with the right people? So like I think I have that conversation a lot more with my friends now, like to kind of like reflect on ourselves and also to hear from someone else's point of view, because sometimes we're blind, right? Love is blind. And we wear the pink colored glasses, rose tinted glasses, and we're just like, oh my God, this person is so good. I love this friend. But in reality, when you go home, you're just like tired and wiped out. So like having someone else's thoughts to kind of like remind you and be like, look, you're so tired and burnt out. I'm not sure if this is good for you. Maybe you want to take a break for yourself. So I think like having that kind of like support group among not just your friends, but also sometimes your colleagues, brings you a lot of like great advice that will help you to also like navigate your future friendships and like work relationships, because you get to see how people kind of like see you also, like what you're experiencing, and sometimes especially when you're blind to it. Like for my fellow introverts instead, they are more like they have harder time opening up. So my best suggestion is to just find someone that you're comfortable with to go with. So I'm the +1 for all of my introverted friends, because they don't like to talk too much in their first few meetings. So they bring me to talk instead. And then after when they feel more comfortable, maybe sometimes a few drinks in, and then they're just like, okay, it's my turn to shine. And then I'm like, okay, it's my turn to take an exit. Subsequently, they'll hang out without me, and like, they feel a lot better hanging out also. So that helps. That helps, just like kind of like an energizer to get the conversation going. Yeah.
Right. Very nice. So this thing about, I mean, on the topic on wellness and finding that balance, right? So in this, as you mentioned in your work, right, you deal with interact with different people. Any trends around wellness that you're also noticing, from the nature of your work as well?
I think especially working with like Safe Space, like the topic of like mental resilience has been brought up quite a bit, mainly because of our job, and also because of like the work that we do. Like we have a lot of employees that are just like sometimes they struggle with their life. And so we kind of like bring up the topic on like how to like self-soothe, how to make sure that you are taking care of yourself, how to recognize like sometimes that you need help. All of these are topics that we often bring up in the office, and I'm very lucky to be in such an office at this right time of age, because like, you know, you never know what kind of officers you're going to work with, what kind of colleagues you're going to work with. But now that I have the habit of constantly reflecting on this, I think like, you know, when you bring this forward into your future years, it will definitely help you to keep a strong mindset against work and also against like people. Yeah.
Actually, I'm keen hearing from KK and Joy, right? So this topic on resilience, right? The workplace is so important, right? And so maybe I'll just ask the both of you, right? So what do you think we can do to nurture that sort of that toughness, that resilience to be able to cope with whether it's work or life challenges?
So if we talk about resilience, I think so a lot of people think resilience is about, oh, how far you can stretch yourself, how far you can go. But I have a slightly different view. I think resilience is about how well you continuously nurture and recharge yourself in order to go that extra mile without burning out yourself. So that's actually how I see having resilience. Yeah. And that method of recharging, how you nurture yourself, everyone can be different. And I think all of us should be open to trying out different methods, like what works to recharge you. Let's say you go for a cup of coffee, the smell of coffee recharges you. That can be it as well, you know. It doesn't have to be, oh, I need to go for a 30-minute yoga. It doesn't have to be something so, you know, with a lot of effort. Just go explore what actually recharges you, that can help you come back refreshed. Then you'll be able to naturally go that extra mile without burning out yourself.
Very nice. How about you, Joy? Any thoughts around this topic?
Wow. Okay. So like a lot of people think that like mental resilience is like a one-person thing. I like to think of it as like a communal thing, because individual resilience comes from community support. That's my kind of feel. Like personally for myself, like I used to be like a pretty brittle, fragile person, like even though I come off as really strong. But like I find it very hard to talk about certain topics, like especially when I'm having a hard time at work. I find it really hard to talk to my manager. I think of it as a weakness. Like, you know, I cannot show weakness to people, and like especially like in a workplace, it's war, right? Like you don't show your back to your enemies, and not to your friends. You don't know who's gonna betray you, okay? So that was kind of like young and foolish me. Like the mindset was to be strong, you know? But like I realized that to be strong, you need a lot of support. Like you can't just be strong by yourself, because like the army needs everybody to be strong, right? Not just one person. So like having like the community support that like I had in the past, like, you know, my manager kind of like counseled me. She was like, girl, that's not working out. Like you really need to reach out for help. You need to take a break for yourself. Like, have you ever been banished by your manager? Because I have. Like, she told me like, look, I'm giving you leave tomorrow. I don't want to see you in the office. I don't want to hear from you. I don't want to see your messages. No emails, nothing. You're blocked. And if I see you in office, I'm throwing you out. So like I've been banished from my office by my manager, even though like we were swamped with work. And that was when I realized that like, oh my God, like that is what being strong looks like. You know, the ability to be able to take care of other people, not just yourself. And in order to do that, you have to take very good care of yourself too. And that comes with a lot of like growth that sometimes you can't achieve by yourself. So individual resilience to me not just comes from yourself, like your realization, your effort, you wanting to be more resilient and wanting to be better, but also comes from like the community, where they're like, they give you the space to be better, they give you the space to grow, they give you the space to learn, and to kind of realize that, yeah, actually I do need it. Like I cannot do this by myself, you know. So that kind of brought me to where I am now. So that was like my surviving soul thought.
So in that, along that line, right? So what if there's an introvert doesn't want to make friends, they keep to themselves, right? And they're at the workplace, they don't interact with their colleagues. I mean, minimal socializing, right? They get the job done and then they are off, right? Any thoughts on how I mean, maybe even from HR, anything they can do to sort of help them build that sense of community to support them?
Okay, maybe this sounds quite annoying, especially like as like I'm like in my mid-20s, okay, like I had a lot of fun and like I was like a group leader, those orientation rah-rah people in the camp, like people were like, oh my god, these people so annoying kind of person. That was me. So like in polytechnic and whatever, that was me. And like when I came to office, I retained that aspect of my personality and I bothered all of my colleagues. I was the youngest when I first started working. And like I'm slightly ashamed to admit that like I just went around to everybody and bugged all of them at work until they got used to it. So they kind of like all those introverts who like hated coming to the office, they didn't want to talk to anybody. They kind of just got used to me hanging around them. And like after that, eventually, like, they succumbed to the fact that like they're gonna have to talk to me to like, dismiss me. So I just kind of became like a link between my management, my HR, and my employees, which I've personally found worked well. It just didn't work all the time because like there's still certain people who find it very annoying. So growing up and growing along with the like phase of like work, I take a little bit more sophisticated approach right now. Like I try my best to not bug everybody during working hours, but I try to like drop them occasional loving texts like, hey, how you doing? Like, you haven't been talking much lately. Shall we catch up over coffee? And like, I swear, like half the time they just like, can you stop annoying me? But like eventually we will still sit down for coffee because I tell them to sit down for coffee with me. And then like half the time like my colleagues like to make fun of me saying like, oh my god, can we even say no to you? You're like the HR. That I was like, yeah. And I'll joke with them and say that like, okay, if you say no to me, I'll just like casually, accidentally disapprove your leave later. And then it's like funny. So so they kind of start just like, okay, fine, whatever. And they'll kind of like go out with me. I don't disapprove their leaves. I don't decline their leaves. I like just like happily let them go. But it's kind of funny to make jokes out of this situation and like, it helps ease them into the conversation of like, okay, fine, I'll have to talk to the HR. So I try to put myself outside of the HR shoes and be like, if you want me to be a friend to you, like I can be a friend. If you want me to speak to in a HR perspective, let's be workplace friendly too. So like kind of like I will give them the option to choose between which one they want to talk to, because sometimes they feel it's very stressful to talk to the HR because they're like, oh my god, they'll come to me with like the law. If I complain to them about work, they're gonna like put this in my performance evaluation. And then I was like, oh my god, trust me, I'm not even holding my phone. I can't even take note of this. I won't remember this tomorrow. So like if we're just friends, then this will come as a friend too. Then I'm also not working. So yeah, it kind of like built a rapport. I would say like I try to build a rapport with all of my colleagues to ease them into the conversation. Even the most introverted of them, I'll try to at least check in on them. And then when they're ready to talk to me, or like, if they're ready to talk to me outside of work setting, then yeah, we will take it outside of work. Yeah.
I see.
I mean, I heard like Han Yi, you're also doing human capital, right? So do you experience similar things, or like are you a very different kind of manager?
You should ask my team. I think the fact of the matter is there are so many different personalities, and the workforce has become so diverse. So there's no one way that fits everything, right? So I think the name of the game is sort of to be able to adapt and figure out what works best for various individuals, while also understanding the collective culture and the way we achieve our results and our deliverables. Right, so it's not a popularity contest, but it's also to understand how we can find and strike that balance between diversity and inclusion at the same time. And I think that is something that's really coming up to the forefront, right? So people have different needs. They want to work from home, they want to work in the office. Some people have different requirements, and how do you continuously find that balance? And I don't think there's a permanent solution. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think one thing that always works is, regardless, is it working with introverts, extroverts, or like a diverse team, it's that openness and being genuine always works. Like yeah, like if you speak with someone, you feel something is not quite right, then be open and upfront to talk about it. Because being open and transparent, being honest, and just to share how you're feeling, what you're thinking, what is happening to you, definitely will foster that relationship and bonding at the workplace. So, regardless of personalities or personas, I think having an honest conversation, as simple as that, will always work.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, back to you, Joy. Just curious, right? So you sort of started your career before COVID times, right? So you saw it before, during, and sort of after, right? You notice anything different or in terms of the needs of people to be able to do their job well?
I would say that like before COVID, I think everybody had like a pretty decent, or rather everybody kind of got used to their like routine of like coming to work and then knocking off and then going home, or like, you know, having after work events, after work parties and things like that, right? But like during COVID was when like a lot of the impact like hit. Like we held a lot of events before COVID and we had a lot of company bonding before COVID, but during COVID we were all isolated, like equally isolated, especially for the teams that were very strongly bonded, or like marketing teams and sales team took quite a huge hit because they started knocking on a lot of walls and doors because like a lot of opportunities kind of closed in on them. And like also like the funds and like, you know, challenges kind of changed. So the requirements of the work also changed. And back then I was working in an IT company. So we were lucky enough that IT worked like even online. So we still had some business, but it was very trickling. So the sales and like the marketing team just took a really huge like hit to their like usual income, the commission and things like that. So like their morale just went down. And it took quite a lot of effort to kind of like bring everybody close together, especially because my company had like other offices in other countries. So we had it in like Malaysia, we had it in India. And back then, my boss and my HR manager used to occasionally visit them. But thanks to COVID, they just like straight up 2 years never meet, never contact and things like that. So it got even harder to kind of bond everybody together when there were no contact, like physical contact. And everybody was like isolated in different areas. So we kind of had a lot of calls to kind of like provide mental and emotional support to each other. And we kind of like put in the habit, like back then we used to like just, you know, like have coffee together, coffee break and things like that. It was so easy. You just like walk over to the person, hey, you want to have some coffee? And then we just go to the pantry and we drink coffee. But during COVID situation, there was no such thing. So we had to like be very conscious with our time. So I think it became something that like everybody took charge of like individually. They started arranging like break time on their calendar where they're like, it's coffee time for me now. Don't contact me. And like our HR kind of like took over and be like, oh, okay, we would like everybody to set lunch time on your calendar. And if it's lunch time for anyone else, please do not call them or message them. This is now our rule. So we kind of had to protect our own calendar because we were expected to be so readily available since we're all working from home and our laptop, right? So we were expected to be constantly readily available for all of the inquiries that we actually had to take very conscious effort to kind of like protect our calendars, protect our time for ourselves. And initially, when it was like the first few months of isolation, everybody put long hours at work because we were like, oh, we're so bored, there's nothing to do. We put long hours at work, but it started burning out like really fast, especially when the time of lockdown like extended and extended and extended. So it just became really hard for everybody to keep up with that. And like the expectation just kind of had to change. So after COVID, I also moved on to different companies. So unfortunately, I didn't manage to really see like improvements in the first company, although I really would have wanted to see what changed. But I didn't manage to do that. I did hear from my ex-colleagues that like, you know, they're actually a lot more open to this kind of topic now. And I'm really happy for them because like, you know, the fact that they are able to kind of like recognize that they need help or that they need to talk to someone about it, it's great. It's great for them personally. So I'm happy for them personally. With Safe Space here, I did hear that like the requirements changed only because it was a fully remote company. And right after COVID, right before I joined, it changed to like a hybrid position. So a lot of employees were very resistant to coming to office because they were so used to working from home. So very unlike my first company where they actually kind of wanted to come back to office to see the physical people, the people here at Safe Space were facing the opposite challenges where nobody wanted to come back to office. Everybody wanted to work from home. So it took some time. We just kind of like eased them into it. We started out with 1 day a week only. And right now it is still 1 day permanent, but a lot of our employees are actually voluntarily coming in. And honestly, I feel like that's a win for us because we wanted our employees to come in a little bit more because we wanted to see our employees in person, especially because it was such a small team. We really wanted to have like that connection with everybody, but it was so hard to achieve when everybody was just away in their own homes and like, you know, there was no bonding, no nothing. So yeah, it did change a little bit like from like how the employees see work to be. But at the same time, I feel like it changed for the better because a lot of companies that were previously very resistant to work from home are now changing their thoughts, and a lot of employees have like better work-life balance thanks to the ability to work from home. Like sometimes they get to do their house chores on their lunchtime, where they actually get to do laundry instead of like, you know, having to go to the dryer because it doesn't dry at night. So I think it does help like certain employees cope better with their life expectations and also their home life. So it really brought us a lot more freedom and decision on how we want to finish our work, especially like flexibility of time. Some people just work better at night and some people work better in the morning. And previously, this was just like a taboo in Singapore. It's just everybody's just 9 to 6 kind of thing. And now that COVID happened and a lot of employers are actually seeing the benefits of this flexible time, a lot of companies actually started implementing them too. And I think it brought a lot of people more benefit than anything lah. So I'm happy that like I'm upset that COVID had to happen in order for us to realize how important some of these actions are in terms of how it can impact our employees as well as their well-being.
Yeah, so with like what you're saying, hybrid working is definitely a trend that will stay for a very long time. I just want to get your recommendation or some tip from an HR executive perspective. How can hybrid working teams work together, or what activities we can do together to cultivate mental wellness while we are, you know, kind of working hybrid and on and off away from each other? What are some of your recommendations?
Okay, so let me try to list out what we tried at Safe Space. Okay, so I'm someone who's really sporty. I love sports, and I tried to pull everybody along with me on my wellness journey, of like physical wellness journey, and be like, we should do some like videos and like, you know, work out together. And half my company were just like, bro, you mad or something. And like we did not do it because apparently they tried it before me and they were like, it did not work out. Nobody was working out at all. So everybody was just watching people like make fool of themselves, were exercising according to a video. It didn't work out. But we still wanted to keep the aspect of like wellness building. So actually Safe Space does something we call the monthly team retrospectives, where the team gathers online to kind of reflect on the month together. And we kind of like, this involves our external team as well. So those who are based abroad and working from home independently, they get to tell us how they're feeling about the work, what they want more from us. And it's all like anonymous. So our employees feel very safe expressing their true opinion. And so last year, it was the first year that I joined them. So last year, I had to work a lot on like initially psychological safety. So like feeling safe to kind of talk to people, to realize that we are here to help them. We're not here to harm them. We won't judge them just because they need further help. And then after that, we built a lot more on like working together, especially like abroad. So using my knowledge of psychology and what I used to study, and also like a lot of research online, I did like some short like I guess like help like courses. So like it was just very short introductory courses. So like we did like how to communicate with staff, how to communicate with your colleagues, how to work with different personalities, how to work with different like characters. So like we kind of like try to figure everything out. So we actually managed to do quite a lot of bonding and understanding of each other through that kind of exercise as well. Because we didn't even know about ourselves. So like some of my colleagues didn't even know their own personality. They didn't know if they were 100% extrovert, introvert, ambivert. They didn't know. They didn't know whether they were like someone who like maybe prefer detail oriented, or if they're someone who is like very big picture oriented. So like they didn't know. So through a lot of these like discussions, our staff actually learn a lot more about themselves and who are the people that they like to work with, or what are the kinds of people they like to work with. And therefore like they kind of reflected on the way like they're working with the staff, especially like for our managers who are like, oh, maybe that's why I always ask for certain things, because this is the kind of things that I like, this is the kind of things that I want to see in certain your projects, your proposals. These are what I want to know. And then our detail oriented staff realized that like, oh right, this is why I spend so much time on this one thing that everybody says is super easy to do, because I want everything to be done perfectly. And that's also where we started to help each other out. Like we balance out their like weaknesses. So our detail-oriented staff kind of like learn how to like let go of certain things and be like, okay, fine, I don't need this. I don't need so much things. I don't need everything to be 100% because nobody's going to look at it anyway. Why waste so much time on it, right? And then our big picture staff realized that, okay, I cannot just focus on the big picture. There's so many things that could go wrong in this. And like, I need to look deeper into it. Then there are those who are like very passive communicators who realize that, oh, so this is why I have so much trouble speaking up, because I'm such a passive person. Like I just realized I just want to go with the flow. But then they kind of end up realizing that, oh, I'm just really disgruntled at the end of the day because I have so much things to say, but I didn't say it out. So we kind of teach them how to tell them, like how to say these things. Like what are some of the ways you can raise up your ideas and opinions in a firm manner that is not abrasive or offensive. So like our staff kind of learned along the way, and I think like the working relationship between everybody kind of changed after a lot of these like short topics and discussions. So it's kind of how we maintain like workplace relations with regards to like mental health, or like, you know, like taking a break from work. We do wind down Fridays. So every week we wind down together, we play online games. My staff sometimes complain that the games we play stresses them out more than it relaxes them. But we try to play together anyway, like, you know, we play draw battle and then we laugh at each other's drawings. Yeah, we play quite a lot of these games online together so that our staff abroad as well, they feel connected to us. Yeah, and we have inside jokes to tell all the time. Yeah.
Hey, I really like these two ideas. So I mean, to employers who are in building new like sort of hybrid teams, you know, spending time getting them to know each other, say the personality, because I think sometimes we take that for granted, right? So, oh, okay, you know, I mean, this person is ambitious, this person is extroverted, but there's a lot more information we can learn about each other, especially if we actually pay attention and commit to learning about each other and of course ourselves, right? And then talking about it openly. Then that builds trust, camaraderie, and sort of that safe space for people to really sort of gel together. That's great. That's great. So actually on that note, right, before there's something strikes me, right? So I mean, to the employers out there, right, and who are needing to engage and make sure that people starting out in their career who's joined their company are mentally well, right, and are just really starting out in their career, what suggestions would you give them, right, to make sure that they build make sure the mental wellness of this demographic is on a good trajectory?
From a safe space perspective, I would say that like usually, okay, so like what we do like for our clients who are just starting out on like their mental wellness kind of journey, right, is we really do a very simple kind of like questionnaire. We just send it out to our staff, like to their staff. We just do a pulse check to kind of like see, hey, are you happy in the company? What are some of the things that you're experiencing wrong? And actually it's just very simple questions, right? But sometimes when you are managing big companies, we tend to forget that these questions are really what brings out what is like to be highlighted to us. And so like with Safe Space, that's kind of what we do as well. So we just kind of like drop in like very small questionnaires that are like constantly just to check in on the company to kind of like see, hey, what's up? What does your company require? What are your employees saying? Are they doing good? And if they're doing good, that's great. We're happy for you. And if they're not, and they're resistant to perhaps like individual counseling, what can we do for them? So like we start out with very simple things like open workshops. So like everybody just attends a workshop. It's just a counselor who tells you about like how to take care of yourself. It could be as simple as that, or like identifying burnout. And actually a lot of these are also like resources that can be found online. So like how to identify burnout, what are some of the ways you can deal with burnout, or if you're having peer problems, what are some of the ways you can deal with it? And I think they are simple, but people kind of like don't realize how big of an impact they can have on your mental wellness sometimes. Like I personally experienced like burnout for like a few months, and I didn't even realize I was burnt out because I just thought, oh, everybody's tired from work. This is just tired from work. But the extent of how tired I was, it's just not normal. Like I just didn't want to continue about my own life anymore. Like I didn't want to go out. I didn't want to do things that I usually loved enjoying, and like the things that I used to enjoy doing. I just couldn't find energy to do it anymore. I wasn't taking care of myself. And it took me like that few months of burnout to realize how tired I was. And only after that did I realize that actually I really need to take better care of myself. So to have like a company that cares for you enough to like ask you these questions, to like, realize that, hey, we also need to take care of our employees. I think that's a very good thing. Like, so if employers are even thinking of like, how can I make sure that my employees are doing well? How can I make sure that they are doing good at work, that they're coping well with their work and life? I think that's already the right start to a company achieving better mental health care for their employees, because that means that the employer is trying already and they are willing to accept that, okay, maybe we do need to do more for them. So I think that's already a good step forward. After that, beyond that, it's really assessing the need of the company to kind of see like how much help they need, how much do the employees need. Is it a very severe problem where they like really require like company counseling or individual counseling for like a whole team? Or is it just like, oh, okay, everybody's doing great, but I just want to kind of like, amp them up, like, give them more armory and like spears to deal with their life problems, to kind of just like, hey, let's go for this workshop together, like let's take better care of ourselves together, like let's go for wellness program and things like that. So like it's really up to the company and also dependent on the employees. What do they need? But for the companies to really think about like, oh, what do my employees need? I think that's a great first step.
Well, thank you so much, Joy, for all your insights, drawing not only from your own personal journey, but very concrete action steps, right, to employers, right, on how to cultivate the environment, not only for the organization, but also at a personal level, and finding that balance between work and that personal and the social aspect of it. So thank you very much to Joy, our fellow wellness warrior, for being here with us today. So for those audience out there for listening, thank you again. Our podcast will stream live to you every second Monday of the month on LinkedIn. So make sure you follow us to get the latest updates. You can also catch up with all the past episodes from the major streaming platforms like Spotify and Google Podcasts. So give us a follow there as well. So that's it from our Wellness Warriors this week, and we'll catch you in our next episode. Bye for now.